Next up, we have the information briefing for Urban Core Subarea Plan Element, and with us we have Matthew Siddons. Matthew, please. Thank you, Terry, for your input.
Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Hello, I'm Matthew Siddons. I'm Senior Planner. I'm here tonight with Nathan Howard, Senior Planner 2, and Carol Oafs, Parks Planner. We will be presenting the Urban Core Subarea element, which is part of the Snohomish County 2024 Comprehensive Plan Update. The purpose of this briefing is to provide an overview of the Urban Core Subarea element, summarize public comments received to date, and to provide an opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions and provide feedback. The Urban Core Subarea element is a subarea plan. A subarea plan is a long-range planning document for a specific geographical area. It includes goals and policies that form the planning framework for future development. Under the Growth Management Act, subarea plans may be included as part of a comprehensive plan as an optional element. Subarea plans can be completed for neighborhoods, rural villages, urban growth areas, and tribal areas. The planning framework for the subarea plan element comes from the Growth Management Act, the Puget Sound Regional Council, PSRC's Vision 2050 plan, and the Snohomish County countywide planning policies. Other policy sources for the subarea plan include initial growth targets, public input, and the comprehensive plan's vision statement. This next section will provide some background on the subarea plan and planning for light rail. So Sound Transit is the regional body that builds and operates regional transit services. The Everett Link extension will add 16 miles of light rail and 6 new stations connecting Snohomish County to the Puget Sound Regional Light Rail Transit Network. 2 station locations are planned in unincorporated Snohomish County. The first one is at Ash Way near the intersection of 164th Street Southwest and I-5. The second location is at Mariner near the intersection of 128th Street Southwest and I-5. And a third provisional station is proposed at the intersection of State Route 99 and Airport Road. This station is dependent on additional funding from Sound Transit. The timeline for the stations in Snohomish County to open for service to the public is 2037, and the operation timeline for the station to open to the public in downtown Everett is to 2041. Sound Transit is currently undertaking the environmental review process for the proposed station locations and alignments, and final locations will not be determined until 2025. The Urban Core Subarea is in the Southwest Urban Unincorporated Area, Snohomish County. It is located between the cities of Everett, Mill Creek, Linwood, and Mukilteo. The plan boundaries were set by previous work completed as part of Snohomish County's locally preferred station area planning. The boundaries are also shaped by the half-mile radius of the planned station locations, which are shown on this map. The sub-area is approximately 6,362 acres in area. In 2022, this area had a population of 76,731 residents. And in 2019, it had approximately 14,243 jobs. The vision statement for the comprehensive plan is for all in this together. In 2044, Snohomish County is a resilient, vibrant, and inclusive place to live with a high quality of life where all residents can thrive. Building on the county-wide vision, the Urban Core Subarea element proposes to create a complete community that meets the needs of people who live, work, and recreate in the sub-area. The area will be well serviced by a variety of transportation options, including light rail, bus rapid transit, car, and active modes of transportation. That includes walking and cycling. Light rail station areas will serve as activity nodes for the community that includes commercial, residential, and public service land uses. And this element emphasizes the importance of social equity, which means ensuring that all residents have equal access to services, amenities, and opportunities. The urban core sub-area is composed of the following sub-elements: the introduction and vision, community profile, interjurisdictional collaboration, environment and climate change, land use and urban design, housing, transportation and mobility, parks, recreation and open space, capital facilities and utilities, and economic development. So the first subsection is the introduction, which provides an overview of the following: the planning policy framework, background on the Everett Link extension, background on Snohomish County station area planning process. It also provides context on the urban core sub-area plan boundaries. And the goal of this subsection is to support development in the urban core sub-area that meets the housing, employment, services, health, and transportation needs of the community. The community profile sub-element provides a historic and demographic overview of the community. This subsection includes information on the urban core sub-area population, employment forecast, and housing unit information by municipal urban growth area. Community demographics include education attainment, poverty level, English proficiency, and people of color. And the goal of this section is to support the communities that reside, work, and recreate within the urban core sub-area. This includes people that access the urban core sub-area for transit, amenities, and employment. The interjurisdictional sub-element provides information regarding the collaboration on future planning in the urban core sub-area. The urban core sub-area is composed of municipal urban growth areas for the cities of Everett, Mill Creek, Linwood, and Mukilteo. So map pictured on the slide shows the MUGA boundaries within the urban core sub-area for all the cities. This subsection notes the collaboration between Sound Transit and the county in considering the siting of light rail stations and alignments. This includes reviewing NEPA and traffic studies and other environmental studies. The goal for this element is work with community members, regional authorities, partnering cities, developers, and transit users to achieve the overarching vision and goals for the urban core sub-area plan. Policies. The section includes policies regarding consultation with community members, regional authorities, partnering cities, and developers. Important policies include collaborative planning with the cities of Everett, Linwood, Mill Creek, and Mukilteo. Collaboration with Sound Transit on siting light rail stations, including the review of environmental studies, and policies regarding coordinating interlocal agreements for the transition of unincorporated areas for possible future annexations. The environment and climate change sub-element provides information on environmental features, including subbasins, water bodies, and flooding. There's a section on urban tree canopy, including the percentage of tree canopy coverage in the sub-area. So the total tree canopy coverage in the sub-area is approximately 36%. And this subsection will provide information on climate change and climate change impacts. Additional information will be provided with the county's release of the Climate Vulnerability and Risk Assessment Tool. The goal for this section is to protect and enhance natural environment and environmentally critical areas and implement carbon and pollution reducing practices in the urban core sub-area. Environmental policies include promoting conservation of streams, wetlands, and environmentally critical areas. Enhancing urban tree canopy by planting new trees and preserving existing tree stands. And climate change policies support local initiatives such as encouraging the expansion of electric transportation infrastructure. The land use and urban design subsection includes information on existing land uses, light rail station locations, station area transit buffers, and future land uses. It provides descriptions for the proposed future land use designations of light rail communities and mixed use corridor. This subsection includes the street typology designation and land use description table that's shown on this slide. So this table is based on a hierarchy of streets developed in the transportation subsection. provides high-level design guidelines and land use descriptions based on street typologies. And these typology descriptions will be further clarified as part of future land use designations and code amendments. And the transportation mobility subsection will provide more details on the street typologies. This map shows the future land use designations for the urban core subarea. Two new designations are the light rail community and mixed use corridor designations. Light rail community is intended for station areas centered on transit buffers. This is based on the walking distance of a pedestrian, which is approximately half a mile in 10 minutes. This designation would be applied to the Mariner, Ashway, and SR99 Airport Road station areas. This designation will be based on the model code work that Sound Transit is currently developing. This designation will support higher intensity and mixed-use developments. The mixed-use corridor district would apply to the SR99 corridor, sections of 164th Street and 112th Street Southwest. This designation will support mixed-use developments along major thoroughfares. And another note for the future land use map is that the urban low-density residential designation shall not be applied within the sub-area. So single-family housing will still be permitted under urban medium-density residential. The goal for land use and urban design policies is plan for communities centered around light rail stations that provide residential, commercial, and employment opportunities, support adjacent residential neighborhoods, and are accessible by transit and active forms of transportation. Policies on general land use, the light rail community designation and mixed use corridor designation, urban design, and temporary structures and amenities. Policies supporting higher densities and mixed use development in lands designated as light rail community, and urban design policies regarding building designs, amenity features, and parking reductions. The housing subsection provides an overview of current housing conditions in the urban core sub-area. There are approximately 30,000 total housing units within the sub-area, and the sub-area has a higher percentage of multifamily housing with about as many apartments as single-family houses. Multifamily unit buildings with 5 or more units make up approximately 42.3% of the housing within the sub-area, and single-family detached housing makes up approximately 35.4% of housing within the sub-area. The remainder of the housing is composed of single-family detached duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and mobile homes. The urban core sub-area is nearly evenly split between homeowners and renters. Approximately 50.8% of housing is homeowner occupied. Approximately 49.2% of housing is renter occupied. The percentage of homeowners to renters vary significantly by housing type. Most of the single-family detached housing is owner occupied, and most of the multifamily housing is currently renter occupied. Housing production has not kept up with demand in the sub-area. Currently, the homeowner vacancy rate is 0.6%, whereas a healthy vacancy rate is considered 1.3 to 2%. Within the urban core sub-area, 32% of homeowners and 71% of renters are considered cost burden. And this map on this slide shows location of cost burden households within the urban core sub-area. The goal for the housing section is preserve, improve, and expand housing stock to provide a range of accessible, healthy, and safe housing choices that are affordable to all income segments within the urban core sub-area. To plan for future housing in the sub-area, we analyzed existing conditions, and this led us to develop the following policies. Establish a targeted inclusionary housing program within areas designated as light rail community and mixed-use corridor. Increase housing variety at a range of affordability levels, including missing middle housing, such as duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses. And establish indicators for monitoring the affordability and availability of housing for all income levels. And with this, I'd like to introduce Nathan Howard, Senior Planner 2, who will be presenting the transportation subsection.
Thank you, Matthew, and hello. going to briefly go over a few of the major items from the mobility section of the sub-area plan. And I first wanted to go through a few of the objectives that we used when we were drafting this section of the plan. So the big thing was completing those more urban trail networks and expanding upon them, such as the interurban trail that goes through this area. A big part of this was the speed and reliability of transit, especially the high capacity transit, such as the community transit SWIFT BRTs. Supporting bicycle and pedestrian connections, especially to those future light rail stations and those high capacity transits. And then, as most know in this area, there's only really two east-west connections that cross over I-5 currently, 128 and 164th. So east-west connectivity was a major barrier that we're hoping to address. And of course, we are always trying to address the major congestion hotspots. And a lot of those objectives were incorporated into the goal for this subsection. So next slide, please. The next 4 slides, I'm going to quickly go through the projects that we have planned for the urban core sub-area over the next 20 years. In the transportation element, which we'll be presenting in 2 months, I believe, those are incorporated into that element, and we'll go into them a little more in depth. These projects highlighted here are the ones that are supportive of transit, specifically the high capacity transit, and they follow the community transit SWIFT lines. Important to note is the number 5 is not a Snohomish County project, but a WashDOT project. And the majority of these are those business access and transit lanes. So those are the ones that are primarily dedicated to transit buses, but do allow for right-hand turns into businesses or around intersections. So next slide. These are the pedestrian supported projects, but one important thing to note with all of these is we are only showing our best guess as to what we think the design will be at kind of the high level planning. When it comes to the designing of the actual projects, it may vary, and that's true for the road projects we'll talk about in a second. It's also important to note that there's a lot of projects here, but the majority of these projects are actually going to be completed as part of larger roadway corridor projects. These aren't just standalone pedestrian projects. And the majority of these are sidewalks being added. There are some shared use paths. And I do want to highlight a few important things. So we are planning for a new crossing of 130th, a new crossing of 148th, a new crossing that's just north of 164th that connects into the potential light rail station. And then we also have a proposal for a bicycle and pedestrian only bridge, which you see down near 24th, which would complete a gap in the interurban trail currently where Maple Road Bridge is. Next slide. And these very similar map, these are the bike supported projects, and the majority of these are bicycle lanes. And there are, again, those shared use paths. I also want to note that the 2 purple ones that you see are greenways, and that's not something we've typically done in the past. These are like sharrows where bicycles share the roadway on kind of low speed roads, but greenways add a little bit of signage or wayfinding that kind of help improve things a little bit more. Next slide. And then finally, these are our road supportive projects. The majority of these projects are bringing the roadways up to urban standards, which typically is a 3-lane road. So 1 lane each way plus a center turn lane. And then of course there is those new overcrossings that we have. So next slide. Matthew mentioned this earlier about the street typology. I wanted to go into a little bit more in depth since it's designated in this section of the plan. Street typology really is trying to get to that area that's kind of the building frontage to the roadway where there's a lot of activity, where people are moving about. And so this is one tool that we're hoping to use to help improve and enhance that area, because this we anticipate as being a very active, street active area. And this takes into account things like bike ped facilities, street trees, parking access, and other uses of this. The plan itself is very high level on this, so it has this designation. The next step we would have to do after this plan is adopted would be to go through a more robust project where we develop design guidelines that hopefully would be very area specific with incorporating the neighborhood's desires. Next slide. And then finally, one of the major parts of this is improving the bicycle network. And as part of this, we are updating the methodology we're using to classify bicycle facilities based on the level of stress. It's a good and industry standard method that we're using. And this is getting to the point that a good portion of the current bicycle facilities that we have and other jurisdictions build are built more for that small part of the population that's really confident on bicycles. They don't mind weaving in and out of traffic or being beside a very busy arterial. But there's a huge portion, the majority of the population, over 50%, would love to bicycle, but is only comfortable on kind of those more calm or more robust facilities. So this is a tool that we can use that can help classify our existing facilities, but also hopefully help encourage us to maybe build facilities that are a little more comfortable for more users. And it also can help us identify ways that we can make lower cost improvements, such as lowering the speed on a roadway that may improve the comfort without having to spend more money. So yeah, and I think that's it. Next slide. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nathan. I'd like to invite Carol Ulse, Principal Park Planner. Carol will be presenting the Parks, Open Space, and Recreation subsection.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Matthew, and nice to see everybody again. The Parks portion of the Urban Core sub-area element coordinates with the Parks and Recreation element that I presented to you last month. So in the Urban Core, the Parks goal states that the county will support equitable access for all people to parks, open spaces, and recreational amenities in the Urban Core sub-area. Next slide. Within the Urban Core, the county currently owns and manages 4 developed county park properties, as well as the Interurban Regional Trail and 1 open space preserve conservation property. Other agencies operate recreation and open spaces in the area as well, including 2 Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife non-motorized boat launches at Lake Stickney and Martha Lake, and 2 city-owned conservation properties owned by Everett and Linwood, and the Alderwood Water Utility District operates the 164th Street Artesian Well. In addition to those publicly owned properties, there are also 8 public schools in the sub-area. Those schools do include playgrounds, sport fields, and open spaces that are somewhat accessible to the community. Next slide. This map shows how we analyze the access to existing parks and recreation properties in 2 different ways. So the darker purple tones are a walkshed analysis around the developed county park properties. Within the shaded areas, the public has 10-minute walking access to park entrances. This analysis helps us understand that even if a park is geographically close to a community, it might be difficult to reach safely while walking. This is particularly important to understand the lack of access to amenities such as walking trails or playgrounds near neighborhoods where children might need easy access. And the lighter blue buffers, which cover most of the sub-area, are a different analysis of park access. These buffers go out 1/2 mile from the edges of all publicly owned parks and open spaces, including schools and those conservation sites that might not provide entrance into the property for recreation use, but still provide open space benefits. So the areas that do not have any purple or blue hatch on them are the areas that do not currently have access to parks, recreation, or public open space sites within 1/2 mile. Next slide. map displays the open space corridors within the sub-area. We made this by mapping all the ecological systems such as tree canopy, parks, conservation properties, wetlands, schools, and other publicly owned open space parcels. And at this scale, we can see that the current corridor connections, and we can see the open space network. And just a reminder that the regional open space conservation plan, which dictates quite a few of the new land use and parks policies from the MPPs, says that the county should identify and protect wildlife corridors both inside and outside the urban growth area. And so this mapping analysis is a first step in meeting those requirements, because it's hard to see those wildlife corridors and open space network linkages at the county-wide mapping scale. But for a zoom in on an area like the urban core sub-area, this map can help us understand if proposed development is improving these corridors or potentially impacting them. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we looked at the buffer map analysis for the existing parks. And the next step in the planning process is to look ahead at how to address the gaps. The county is planning for some strategic acquisitions and new park developments in this area to address the MPP requirements that we provide park trails and open space within walking distance of urban residents. We are anticipating that each of the 3 station areas would come with a measure of urban public open space as part of the sound transit development. So that will be 3 potentially new parks and open spaces. And then in addition, new parklands could be located in the identified areas of need, prioritizing sites that also provide park access to historically and currently marginalized communities. Next slide. And lastly, I just wanted to summarize the park policies that are specific to the urban core sub-area. They include directives to develop and renovate parks near those light rail stations, acquire new parks to serve high density development, improve access, including water access, mitigate barriers, enhance regional trail connectivity, utilize public and private partnerships, and install interpretive and educational signage. And now I'll let Matthew take it back over to talk about the other capital facilities.
Great, thank you, Carol. The next section is capital facilities and utilities. The capital facilities and utilities sub-element identifies the service and utility providers that operate within the sub-area. County general government services include surface, transportation, parkland, recreational facilities, surface water management, general government facilities, and solid waste. External agencies include public education, fire protection services, public water supply, public wastewater supply, and utilities include electric power, natural gas, and telecommunications. The goal for the capital facilities and utilities section is support coordinated, efficient, and standardized services and utilities that promote safe, healthy communities and enhance the quality of life in the urban core sub-area. And the policy themes include working with service providers to extend services in a manner that's consistent with growth patterns supported in the comprehensive plan, coordinate with service and utility providers to identify opportunities for co-location of public facilities and infrastructure. And the county should coordinate with wastewater service providers to identify unsewered urban enclaves. The economic development subsection includes a labor analysis that identifies total employment, commuter patterns, and employment locations. Market analysis that identifies market trends and forecasted market area growth. The character of urban centers includes incubator spaces, food economy, and indicators of success. Employment within the sub-area is concentrated along major highways and arterials. And high employment densities are identified at the intersection of 128th Street Southwest and I-5 and 164th Street Southwest and I-5. The goal for the economic development section is support education and training opportunities for people, businesses, and industries so that the urban core sub-area continues to serve as a gateway to Payne Field and other employment centers in the region. Economic development policy themes include business retention and expansion, workforce training, food economy and urban food systems, creative placemaking and creative economy, and land development and acquisition. The GMA requires early and continuous public participation, and this has occurred to date throughout the development of the urban core subarea element. So information has been posted on the county's light rail communities webpage. The county had a table at Sound Transit's Everett Link Extension scoping meeting on Tuesday, February 15th, 2023. Over 1,600 members of the public were in attendance at this meeting, and this was Sound Transit's best attended open house event. Notification emails regarding the public comment period were sent to the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Update contact list, a list of property owners and developers who have previously expressed interest in the sub-area planning process, contacts in adjacent cities, service providers and utility providers, and virtual meetings on the draft urban core sub-area policies were held for adjacent cities, service providers and utility providers, an interested private property owner in the sub-area, and the Housing Authority of Snohomish County, also known as HASCO. And the public review period for the comments was from March 1st to March 31st, 2023. A total of 21 formal responses were submitted regarding the draft urban core sub-area policies. This included city governments, local agencies, property owners, and members of the public. The cities of Linwood and Mill Creek submitted comments regarding interjurisdictional coordination, land use, transportation, and capital facilities. Policies UC 3.11 and UC 3.12 were added to the interjurisdictional collaboration sub-element regarding interlocal agreements and annexations. Policies UC 5.5 and UC 5.6 were added to mitigate the risk of displacement for small businesses and community facilities. The public expressed concerns about displacement caused by development of light rail stations. Policies UC 6.7 and UC 6.8 support mitigation and relocation strategies for households that are at possible risk of displacement, and all public comments are available in the index of records. Just as a summary, the next month's briefings will include the housing element, capital facilities and utilities elements, and climate change element. Any questions not answered tonight will be responded to via email. As well, we'll take any comments and feedback received tonight from the Planning Commission and revisit both the narrative and the policy section for the urban core sub-area. At this time, I'd like to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew, Nathan, or Carol from Planning Commissioners? Commissioner James.
Thanks. Had a problem finding the hand again. Good presentation. Thank you. Big 30,000 foot question here. Just has the urban core sub-area element is defined in our packet as a optional sub-element. Has it always been optional, and has it always been part of the comp plan?
Commissioner James, that's a really good question. So the urban core sub-area is a brand new sub-element that's being introduced to the comprehensive plan. So all the policies and all the narratives are new additions that we've created. So from my knowledge, this is the first time that the county has introduced a sub-area plan in our comprehensive plan. And the reason why we're doing this is just because of the high level development that's going to be coming to Snohomish County with these 3 new light rail stations coming to this area. We wanted to make sure that we had comprehensive policies in place to help us develop these areas and kind of see these areas develop into kind of like denser, more mixed use urban forms to kind of support transit and other amenities in this area. So kind of all these policies and everything are new to the sub area, or new to the comprehensive plan.
Excellent. Thanks, Matthew.
Commissioner Campbell.
I had two questions. One on the interlocal agreements, and I saw it written in the sub-area plan that cities are the primary provider of urban services. And so in terms of the interlocal agreements, I saw that, Mill Creek and Linwood, Mukilteo, they have a really big vested interest in how this is going to work. So I know that the policies on annexation get a little political in terms of property owners and the like, but how is the county so this is one question, how is the county facilitating the adoption or the annexation through interlocal agreements? That's question one. And then question two is, I live on a SWIFT line and I don't see many people using it. And I'm curious about, for the transportation element, really how we see users, in the build out of some of the transit oriented development.
Sure. So, Commissioner Campbell, I'll answer your first question in regards to interlocal agreements. So, with these policies, we want to ensure that we're working collaboratively with the municipalities in regards to the MEGA areas and possible future annexations that would happen in the area. In terms of those policies, we kind of kept them open at this time to make sure that the interlocal agreements are flexible, that they could cover any future issues or future items that that might come up during the annexation process. We did share all these draft policies with the adjacent municipalities to get kind of their feedback and their feedback on and comments on these policies. So that feedback kind of shaped it as well. And as well, the comprehensive plan has like a general section that talks about the annexations and annexation processes. So that kind of provides further guidance on any future interlocal agreements or annexations. But ideally, we'd want to kind of see this process move kind of straightforward between the county and the jurisdictions.
And Commissioner Campbell, I'll jump in on the SWIFT piece of that. So, well, first off, a lot of ridership did decline during the pandemic and for transit, and slowly been ramping up. The SWIFT lines are community transit's highest performing lines, so that's an important piece. But it is important to note that the majority of people will only take bus transit if they live within like a quarter mile. Maybe for SWIFT, it'd be more like a half mile if they can walk there to it, or if they can take a parking ride. So in the urban core sub area, we do have a fair amount of sidewalks, but the sidewalks are primarily on newer development, or they are on long arterial. So there's a lot of areas that don't have sidewalks, so people aren't as comfortable. So one of the things we are trying to address is improving that access via bike or walking. We also are looking at improving, so some of the improvements like the 130th overcrossing is projected on our analysis to have significant improvements to the SWIFT service. We're talking many minutes in reduction of the time, so that should hopefully entice people to take transit more. So there's a variety of things that we're hoping to do to improve the transit service on our end, and of course improve access to transit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner, Neil Peterson, please.
Yeah, Matthew, this is for you. Thank you for the presentation. Just looking at the economic development and the job density, do we have a good handle on how many people are working from home? And, I look at that map and I know, all my neighbors have full-time jobs, but there's no commute out of my neighborhood. The internet kind of draws down. And so, we would have a high density of people that would be, working in Seattle, but not leaving home. So do we have good data on what that looks like?
To Commissioner Peterson, we do in terms of the economic development subsection. So It does talk about employment within the urban core sub-area, and kind of what we found is that currently, like a lot of people who currently reside in this area kind of work outside of the urban core sub-area.
I'll also touch on that a little bit. We touch on that a bit more so in the transportation element, but there isn't robust data on that. The trends changed a lot during COVID, of course. PSRC has been doing some analysis, but that it's very preliminary, and a lot of businesses are in flux. Another thing that PSRC has been doing with their data, they've noticed it's really dependent on industry. So some industries are, more of the white collar jobs are much higher in the telework, but there's a lot of jobs that don't have high telework. So we just don't currently have robust data. And I know for us with the transportation section, we acknowledge that is happening, but we can't really base a lot of that on, kind of anecdotal assumptions. So we're assuming the trends that exist traditionally.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. This is a big three-dimensional puzzle. That was the impression I had as I was reading the staff report. It's amazing how you bring it together. Any other questions for staff while they're here? It's a major project, and I wish us well. One more call for questions from commissioners.